Joe, if you have comments, you're free to.
Oh, no, my job's sit here and watch the donuts and everything, the coffee go around the table, so.
And not eat the mayor's maple bars.
No, never.
I understand that, so.
My name's Katrina, I'm here with the News Register.
Jim Snell, Parkway Committee person, and I've lived in Dundee, Newburgh, Sherwood, and now Summerfield, which is in Tigard. And but I still have an idea of this needing to get done there.
I'm Chris Mercier. I used to come to these meetings a lot. It's been about 3 years since the last time I was here. I'm with Grand Ron.
Oh, good. Good to see you.
Good morning, everybody. Rob Perrine, Tribal Attorney, Grand Ron.
Sharon Alley, LHNA Bypass Committee.
Stan Alley, LHNA.
Larry Yoder, Parkway Committee, Mendel City Council.
David Russ, Mayor of Dundee, and Parkway Committee.
Ken Warner, Weekend Bill, Mayor of the Contest Ambassador, and candidate for the state legislature.
Anything you want to say?
Kurt Walker, Parkway Committee member from Newburgh.
Stan Hermsich, Parkway Committee member and Yamhill County Commissioner.
Brett Baker, I'm on the Parkway Committee and I work for the Austin family in Newburgh.
Mike Ragsdale, Parkway Committee member and member of the Chehalis Park and Recreation District Board.
Dave Ogburg, Chair of the Parkway Committee. And I wanted to make a comment as we're getting ready to start. Mike Ragsdale mentioned to me, he says, I've seen groups and entities where they get started with a big flourish and they go on, and over time it kind of wanes and interest wanes and attendance wanes. And the Parkway Committee has really been quite the opposite. And over a long number of years, not only has the interest continued, but as you can see, the enthusiasm, the momentum by a large number of volunteers and others has continued to be strong and effective, and that's how we've come to be as successful as we have. Chris was on the Parkway Committee for many years as a member of the Tribal Council of the Confederated Tribes, but is another example of somebody whose interest has never wavered with respect to this project. And so we're delighted to have all of you here, and it's an open forum, and when we have issues, we always look for conversation and an opportunity. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, let me know, and we'll do that. We've got some important things to talk about first, and then we'll have some reports. But I know, Mr. Mayor, you have another matter at about 8 o'clock, and so I want to start with you in terms of just Newburgh and anything that you'd like to say before you have to go on.
Well, as far as Newburgh is concerned, the most important part I've already taken care of, and that's to introduce our new city manager. But incidental to that, we're continuing the work on Villa Road this year for doing a resurface and actually smoothing it out, not straightening it out, smoothing it out underneath the trestle. This year, culverts and utilities, and they're working on it now. There are some stoppages on the traffic there, but they're short-lived. We're going to be doing some paving on Elliott and North Springbrook. And this becomes, as Dundee found out, when you start doing some of these things, then you get into the ADA issues and all the ramps. So there are 10 ADA issues that are associated with that activity. As you know, the bypass work is now up and going on Springbrook, and then there are some activities on 219 in the intersections. We have a new project. It's a carry-on of a project we've had for a while. We installed 2 new veteran parking spaces in our 2nd Street parking lot. These are parking spaces that are reserved for veterans. We have one other one in our garden there by the cultural center, and so we have added 2 more of that particular. We're going to be doing some crack sealing, and the council is now looking at various funding options that we can look at and maybe implement 1 or more for doing some extensive pavement maintenance in our city. Thank you.
Mayor, did you remove your red light photo system?
Say again?
Did you remove your red light photo system?
No, the state did.
I think that's what it was.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll skip ahead now and talk about the project. The most interesting and the most important thing is the recent developments with respect to the right-of-way issues on the second phase, that portion of the bypass from 219, Highway 219 to Rex Hill. And we've all known there's been long conversations, the committee's heard from others about different opportunities and issues with respect to development of property in that right-of-way. And so over the last number of years and now months, we've had a lot of conversation about how do you protect that right-of-way and what needs to happen. And so I can tell you that as a part of that conversation, a number of entities have weighed in support of the next phase of the park, of the bypass. And I think here's why they've done it, and a lot of credit goes to those of you who, like Chris, Mayor Andrews, Commissioner Primazich, Ken Wright, on our representatives on the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation. But I went to that meeting and we had a conversation about what would happen if you have development in the right-of-way and you lose that opportunity to build phase two. First, the impact on phase one will never perform as efficiently as it will until you build phase two. The second one is the issue with respect to Newburgh and Springbrook Road and the impacts on Newburgh if you don't build phase two. And equally as important, at the Area Commission on Transportation, Commissioner Brentano from Marion County was there. And when he heard about the impacts and when Springbrook doesn't work, that's going to be to make an even bigger problem for Newburgh, or it's going to by default put a lot of people across northern Marion County, which is not what Marion County had anticipated when this whole project was conceived. So Marion County asked, I went over and met with them, and they brought in ODOT people and talked about that impact. And as a result of that conversation, Marion County Commission members, all three, signed a letter to ODOT and to the chair expressing their strong support, number one, to protect the right-of-way on phase two, and the need not only just to protect the right-of-way, but only you got to build phase two to avoid these unintended consequences on Marion County. And so it was an enormous step forward in terms of project support to begin now to have that kind of support. MWAC then wrote a letter, in fact they wrote two, but one of them was talking about the need to finish projects once started. Commissioner Primazich and Mayor Andrews and a number of you have all been very strongly supportive of that concept. And secondly, to acquire the right-of-way to move this project forward. And we had letters from legislators. So what that's done is set the stage for a much heightened conversation about it. ODOT recently then announced, and Matt Garrett told us at a meeting, that in addition to the $7 million of project savings that were identified that will go to do what's right with respect to the Wilsonville intersection and to start to build that connector road, which is really a part of phase two, in addition to that $7 million, that ODOT has identified other project savings. And you would say, okay, how much? And I can tell you that the ODOT staff was really pretty conservative when they said how much they think will be saved, because if they overestimate and it isn't there, that's an awkward situation, obviously. And so Director Garrett said that they have identified at least $10.5 million of additional project savings. That's over and above the $7 million. And that $10.5 million could be used for X. And so the conversation was, all right, you've got $10.5 million. What's the most important thing that has to happen? You'll recall that this committee adopted a resolution in the winter, February or whenever, saying that with respect to this project, the single most important thing that needs to happen is phase two. That, let us be clear. Nobody is saying that fixing the fish hook, if it needs to be fixed when the project opens, isn't important. It is important. But in the whole scheme of things, if you don't protect the right-of-way to phase two, you never get there. So that was told, the message was given to Director Garrett that take the $10 million and move it forward and begin to acquire that right-of-way that's threatened. And then it brings up a question, that we'll all be having a further conversation about, but not all of that $10 million of savings is the state's savings. Remember, all three of the cities and the county also have a piece of that. The tribe was in it for $4 million, and so they're also concerned about what happens with those extra dollars. And so the conversation has been, take those savings from both ODOT and the locals and apply that towards the commencement of activities and the acquisition of right-of-way on that next phase. Let me say, it's not money that you're gonna get back. When we talk about project savings, there isn't dollars there that somebody writes you a check. I'm not sure how ODOT will structure it. It's money that you didn't spend, that you already agreed on to go to the bypass. So there will be a continuing conversation. The Transportation Commission is meeting today in Hood River. The three mayors, Commissioner Kremzich, I know Rob Green and Chris Messier are gonna go, and we're gonna be there to the commission because their agenda includes an item that says that they would add the next phase to the State Transportation Improvement Program in the STIP. And that is just critical, as we all know. You've got to get into the STIP to move forward with the project and construction. And they would allocate, the commission would allocate that $10.5 million of project savings to phase 2. Well, that is a huge step. The other thing the commission is going to, we hope, take the action to say, and authorize the department to begin to acquire, particularly this property that's at risk, so that it isn't lost for the development of the bypass. And then the commission is going to say, look, if ODOT's going to put in their 9.5 of the $10.5 million, they would expect the locals to say, we're going to let our dollars ride, and that those dollars also would stay a part of the project. So McMinnville, for example, would need to take action to say, yeah, we agree, we want to keep those dollars that we've already pledged to the project in, just expand the project and use them not only for the phase 1, which is what the whole agreements were, and just expand that to use them on the next phase. So that is a monumental step forward. Think how that plays out with respect to what we're doing with our legislative efforts with the Michelle Giguere and their efforts on the state and the next transportation package and their efforts with respect to the federal transportation acts. And Commissioner, you had told me at the last MWAC meeting that there were conversations there with some of the legislators also being very supportive of the need to move phase 2 forward.
Yes, we had four of the gang of 8 that they're come to known as that are building the transportation package, their legislature. And there was, without any hesitation, a desire on their part to make certain that the right-of-way got purchased. They can't believe the absurdity of allowing that to get away. The language was very strong. They were, Betsy Johnson from over on the coast is, if any of you had any opportunities to be in meetings with her, she's very vocal and very straightforward.
And very powerful.
And has a loud voice, but Senator Winters was present, Lee Byer. So the key players in the transportation package were there, and they were of a single mind that this is a critical piece. So we are building support. Senator Boquist, who was not able to attend the meeting, but is also a part of the transportation subcommittee, is very much aware of everything we're doing here, and is very supportive of making sure that this bypass gets completed. So there is a lot of support in the legislature. The biggest thing is, will they come up with a transportation package, period? But if they do, I think we're a big part of it.
So the second half of that, though, and there was a meeting this week, and Brett, Ken Austin, the Worth family, and the clinic and ODOT were there to talk about the need to try to also work together to accommodate this potential medical clinic and what might that look like? And so all of those parties met in a very, and I understand, a cordial meeting and conversation about how do you move forward and to explore those kinds of opportunities in a constructive way, much has happened with respect to Lad Hill and Wilsonville. And so that is just going to get started. And I just want to say that I want to tell you how much I appreciate the Worth family's willingness to continue to sit down and be a part of a conversation and bring that clinic conversation along, and how much we are in the debt of Ken Austin, who has been just tireless in saying, this is an extraordinarily important project for the region and for Newburgh. We need to finish this phase for the benefit of Newburgh. And Ken Austin, if you know anything about him, is not only there in person, but he brings his personal resources and that of his company to the table to help make things happen. And it's just an extraordinary commitment by a family that we've known for a long time, is totally embedded in Newburgh and what's good for Newburgh. So wanted to update you on that. So more to come on that, but I'm expecting that the Transportation Commission at some point, hopefully today, is going to look back to us and say, we're ready to put a lot of money in this project. We just want to know that our partners are going to leave their money in the project too. And so that will be moving forward. I've been working on that. If you ever saw stars starting to align like they did last time, even more so. And I want to open it up for questions. And there's a lot to talk about, but I know, Mike, you're going to be involved in this from the standpoint of the Park and Recs District, and I know you've been some background comments.
Well, I'll be redundant and repetitive, and that is, we've got to, as Parkway Committee, really keep our focus on the upcoming legislative transportation package and make sure that it's robust, so there will be enough in that package to do more than just right-of-way acquisition. We've got to move the project forward. It's, as we all know, it's unfunded, and so I personally will be spending a lot of time on that. The conversation that Dave was talking about is the affected property owners and other key players will be meeting with ODOT over the next 10 days, 2 weeks to kind of resolve all these issues about that right-of-way. And one of the discussions is a possibility of realigning it so that it goes onto the Cheyenne Park and Recreation District property that the golf course is on. And so I'm going to be a member of that group talking about that, to watch out for the interests of the Park and Recreation District, as well as being able to be liaison for the Parkway Committee.
They can go on whole night if they want, that's fine.
Other questions or comments?
You don't like that whole.
I want to, I commented about the Austins and the Worths. I have to tell you that at every meeting we've had, both internal and having conversations with ODOT to encourage this to move forward, you have to give thanks to Rob Green and Denise Harvey, who's a member of the Parkway Committee and a member of the Tribal Council. And the Confederated Tribes has been there as our partner at all of the meetings, and working hard and bringing their abilities to help make things happen to those conversations. And so a lot of people, just everybody has come together to say, how do we make something really special happen? And so the list would go on if you acknowledge people, but I had to do that one. Other question, Mr. Mayor, you're going to leave, but any comments before you leave? And this is right in your downtown, practically, literally in the city limits.
It's in Newburgh, yes.
It is, yes. But it affects your downtown enormously.
Well, that's the whole concept, is to give the streets back to the people in the downtown area, to take that traffic out of there, that congestion, that damage to our environment and everything else that's associated with heavy traffic, heavy freight traffic through there. So we're invested in this, and the mayor is committed to moving before the council any endorsements that we need to move forward with for the benefit of ODOT's activities.
Other,
I have something to say.
please, Scott.
Not only is it the downtown, we're talking about old downtown, that's our new downtown. This is going to be the new downtown Newburgh very soon, when we start seeing some of these developments come in, and some of the other things. We'll see a shopping center up there, possibly a major one, and so this is going to be a big impact. It's a big impact to the neighborhoods, which are the new that are in this area, this is a major issue for the city of Newburgh, definitely.
And Councilor, you'd also mentioned to me that from the homeowners association where you are, how important it is for this phase 2 to get built.
Well, the traffic is never gonna be good until we get the bypass completed. If, what we're doing on Springbrook, it's actually gonna help, and I've done a lot of study on it, it's gonna help for maybe 5 years. But, we've got major problems with traffic, and we're having an explosion. You talk to our developers, and they're building like mad. So it won't be very long, and the traffic associated with this is gonna really impact the downtown. That's where our major hotel is, as the Austin Snow, and this is where this is all the action right here, and it's got to be done, but it's got to be done right, and that's one of the things I've been trying to find out is what are they talking about when done right? What's this new design going to look like? And I think that's what's being resolved on. That's one of the most important things that's going to happen is making sure when it's designed, it's done right. So yeah, it's a big deal for us.
Good. Other?
I think everybody's aware of what it looked like if it's done. The impact of it not getting completed to the economic development of Yamhill County is staggering. It will all but stop. It's a critical piece if we're going to grow our economy in Yamhill County, and I think everybody's aware of that. And so it's not a question of how nice it would be. It's a question of the future of our cities, but of the entire county. So we have to muster all of the support we can from every entity that we represent to make certain that our legislators and ODOT appreciate just how critical it is to our future growth.
Just a couple things I'd like, met with Mary Andrews and I sitting on the board of directors of the League of Oregon Cities and having our board meeting tomorrow. The League of Oregon Cities has our transportation policy, legislative policy advisory board has completed meeting, and it appears now that our top priority in the League of Oregon Cities is going to be a transportation funding package, which will sends a signal of our lobbying group for the League of Oregon Cities and our lobbying staff to work very closely with the legislature to ensure that a transportation package gets passed for what's best for not only the cities but for the counties and state as well. But also part of that statement that we'll be working with the legislature is to again emphasize that it's critical that projects that have already been started around the state, that those projects be finished before new projects be taken on. Because as we all know, one of the problems is the state takes on so many new projects in the transportation area that we still have projects that are 30 to 40 years old now that have never ever been finished. So it's really critical for the legislature to realize, and Commissioner Primisich talked about the Gang of Eight, but especially the bipartisan group that the governor has put together to realize that we can't continue to start new projects without completing the projects we've already done. So that's one of the biggest emphasis of the League of Oregon Cities this year is to work on a statewide transportation funding package.
So I wanted to go back just a couple of steps and tell you that when we talk about allocating the local entities project savings or keeping it in this whole project, the tribal council has already adopted a resolution saying we're all in. Whatever, some of you may not know, but they put in the first 4 of the 20 million and committed it and had a great ceremony here recently about that. But they're absolutely committed to keeping those dollars in. So of the 5 entities, they're the first to already adopt a resolution saying, let's stay together and let's continue the partnership and keep our dollars moving and working. So thank you very much. Legislatively, you asked that we increase our lobbying efforts, and I just wanted to report on that conversation. Michelle Giguere was here, time goes by, last couple of meetings ago, last meeting, and talked about the need for an enhanced lobbying effort in the legislative areas, and pointed out that, this is a great opportunity, but we not only have an opportunity on the federal level with the FAST Act and the high priority corridor, but the state legislature is going to be very busy, which really doubles our efforts. And so in conversations with Michelle, and she said probably it would double our effort or our expenses. So I can tell you that the local jurisdictions have been listening and adopting the funding to double, and in one case not quite doubling, the commitment to lobbying efforts so that we can have a person in Salem all the time. And we look forward to working with others' lobbying efforts, but we're getting close, and I think we will end up, I have one entity yet to call upon, but I'm comfortable that they'll be a player. I think we can get to that, doubling our current budget of $70,000, and we can get to a lobbying budget of hopefully $140,000 for this coming year. So excellent news, and all of our partners have been very willing to be a part of that. So we'll keep you posted, but that's an agreement, as some of you may not know. When we put all those numbers together, then it goes to the Board of Commissioners, and they approve that budget, and they approve the contract with Summit Strategies and the amount. So I look forward to presenting that to them. I have one meeting later this month, and I think then we'll be ready to, Commissioner Primozic and I can have the conversation about where that package really ends up. So that's been very, very important. Questions on any of that? It's been a while since we've gone down the list, and I wanted Mayor Andrews, but let's report on ODOT is not here this morning, and I'd asked Kelly Amador about that. Well, Kelly Amador said, no, David, I'm going to be in Hood River this morning by 9 o'clock because that's where the Oregon Transportation Commission is meeting, and that was not an option for her. I think it would be very helpful at one of the upcoming meetings that we have her here, and I think a good, Mike, at an appropriate point, we're going to be talking about what you said about the strategies going forth, and it needs to be going now, and when we want to have Michelle come back and Christine Everts and have a conversation about how we move this legislative package forward. You can't wait till November, December. It's starting. The train is getting filled with passengers now.
Dave, in the last go-around where the legislature funded transportation with a significant increase, we got lucky because we weren't monitoring it closely at this stage. And we got lucky because a couple of legislators really drove our bus and got us funding. We need to be involved. I think you ought to have Michelle and Christine come as early as our next meeting and give us an update, and particularly ask them to bring us marching orders, telling us what they would like to have us do, support their effort. And one of the things that I would emphasize, I'll emphasize at meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, if you have any contact with any legislators at all, let Michelle know about the content of that contact, so that our professional lobbyists who are on the ground full-time are completely up to speed on what information we're getting.
Yeah, and I wanted to, that's a great point, Michael. Let me just give you an example. Lots of times we'll have conversations about the project, and legislators, and a couple recently have said, well, okay, but what about the fish hook? Because we're all aware of the fish hook, and we know that. So that, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to say that isn't an item for conversation, but we need to be very careful when we have that conversation that we say to the legislators or others, look, clearly we're concerned about the fish hook, and clearly it may become an issue. And let me say it is an important consideration, but it is not in anywhere near the same level of consideration as phase 2 and getting it going. Because otherwise what happens is legislators get mixed signals, and pretty soon I or Michelle hears a conversation, well, I hear now you're more concerned about the fish hook. So tell me why, what is it? And we just need to be absolutely clear in our message that we need to get that next phase going. We will never forget the fish hook, but let us be clear what's the most important issue at this time. And so I think if we keep that message, that goes back, and then to keep Michelle advised of those conversations.
So Dave, in answer to your question, I think it would be very valuable for us if we had Michelle, Christine come to the next meeting and coach us, actually walk us through what we each each party individually and separately and collectively can be doing to expand their efforts.
Okay, I will ask her to do that. Other comments on that?
Just to follow on that comment,
Please,
I
Stan.
had a conversation with Betsy Johnson along that same line, and she said, I've been getting mixed signals from people involved in your project. And I says, what mixed signals? She said, well, they don't know whether they want to buy right away, they want to fix 219, they want to fix the fish hook. And I said, let's be perfectly clear, we have nothing unless we finish phase 2. So that is what we voted on, we have a resolution, so that is the primary project goal at this point in time. So, but there is, to your point, David, there is confusion on the part of the legislatures as to what we as a group believe to be important. So it's absolutely critical that our message be clear, consistent, and focused.
Good, thank you. Other questions or comments on that?
I've got a comment.
Please.
I've also talked with Mike Googler and the Worth family. Basically, it's his representative. I haven't really talked to the Worth family, but I've talked to Mike. And their concern is that you're going to go ahead and buy it. They're going to give up a medical center, and there's going to be 40 new employees that will not be hired because we gave it up. So that's why this phase that you guys are in right now, negotiating, where is it going to exactly be? And can there be some adjustments that maybe perhaps the Park District can help with that would maybe have both, maybe have it all, because it's a 300-foot wide right-of-way, as I recall, in the planning section. So it was planned under the EIR, just a 300-foot wide area that is now, it's going to go there. And so it's, to their concern is, and I think it's a legitimate concern, is we go ahead and buy the right-of-way without any way to pay for it in the future, and it sits there for 20 years, and essentially we lose, and they're thinking of Newburgh at the same time, we lose a major medical facility there. So that's why this is such an important phase. So when I heard you say that we know what it's going to look like at the end, no, we don't. I don't know, and I've tried to find out what's it going to look like at the end. There's the 300-foot right-of-way. They planned an EIR through it, but they haven't told us what it's going to look like. They haven't designed it, so we can't know what it looks like. And that's why this phase is so important. And I've been trying to contact. We've had a board member trying to contact Kelly, and we're wanting to know because it can be all kinds of beautiful, or it can be all kinds of an eyesore. And that's what the neighborhood and the community is worried about. At the same time, it's real important to get built either way, whether it's an eyesore or not, because you can't get to the store because traffic's backed up at your door down what should be a country road. It's going to be a major issue, and I think everybody admits that this is designed to fail. And
That's Springbrook.
At Springbrook, right. So this is going to be a tremendous issue for I know, the Greens Homeowners Association until we get that thing built. So that's why I'm, both as a counselor and as the president of the association, pushing really that we need to know what it looks like, we want to get involved in it, and we want it to happen.
And I will see Kelly this morning later, and I will make sure that she's aware of the need for this conversation.
Right. Now, I think one of our board members has been in contact with her, but I think that would help too, to let them know it's really important for us to know what's this going to look like. Okay, it's going to be there, but how's it going to look like to the community? Especially, I don't know if you guys are aware of the letter that I sent to the council, which basically was from a homeowner that said, or a purchaser of the land, saying, gee, we're going to buy our beautiful house with a beautiful view over there in the greens, and guess what? We found out that there's going to be a big overpass, and it's going to be an eyesore, and we're not going to do it, and we're going to tell everybody not to do it. And so, I mean, at that point, it gets to be an issue, because we want to know if, the homeowners can say, well, do we have to say that this is coming and divulge it in our before we can sell, that this big eyesore is coming? Well, we don't even know what's coming. So I have to calm down the whole community based on that. So yeah, it is important that it gets bought and designed and people know what they've got. And these kinds of things that are up in the air is what really affects the community.
Understand. I would just, one thing about the design, for example, of overpasses, this committee spent meeting after meeting after meeting involved with ODOT in looking at and selecting designs, concrete surfaces, the railing types, the way the structures are designed. So this isn't like it used to be with ODOT and says, we just built you something and there it is, take it. So we've had a lot of opportunity, whether it might be exactly how you did it, but, so I say that because ODOT has been very willing to have a conversation with us about impacts on communities, and so it'll be a good conversation when you talk, I think, with Kelly.
Great.
Others, important.
I just have to add one thing. I mean, ODOT also, in addition to the Parkway, actually met with communities in Newburgh and in Dundee to design specific aspects of the half-mile bridge structure. They worked with the communities there on what the protective sounders would look like. And in Dundee, they had discussions with us. We actually had a focus group that helped them design some kind of artistic design on the bypass that goes over 99. So I've been pretty happy with what they've.
Yeah, and I'm just wanting to say, okay, what's that? What is that? I haven't got a copy of it. I didn't attend the meetings. I wasn't involved.
Based on the history, those people that are going to see that bridge probably might be involved in what it's going to look like. So they'll have some input.
Great news.
Good.
Thanks.
That's why we're here. Other?
Would it be helpful to this, to the base for us to weigh in and provide a letter, send it to ODOT, someone to say that we're in alignment directly with you guys? Obviously, it's a different situation for our neighborhood association from a financial standpoint, but we agree that Springbrook was designed to fail, and that this phase 2 and the right-of-way acquisition is essential, plus getting the design out, as Scott said. So,
I'm happy to pass that on. I can tell you, I think ODOT would tell you, and the Chair Boehne would tell you, she has gotten a lot of letters for a lot of people making those very same points, and that's the message we're going to send this morning. But it's always good to have people continue to be in a conversation about the importance of this project moving forward, not only just with ODOT, but particularly the legislators who have the ability to help, as Mike said, put a package together that's big enough to make a difference. So, yeah.
And the other point is to echo what Stan just said, was in our conversations in Salem, we got the same kind of thing as we're here, we got mixed signals. And this was a specific conversation with Senator Boquist and others saying, what is it? You guys need to make up your mind, like the whole community.
I think they're getting that message. We continue to tell them on and on and on, and sometimes it's hard to get it through, but you got to keep pounding that on.
In your letter to them, Stan, you can point out that you attended another Parkway meeting, and the focus is definitely on phase 2 and completion of that, the purchase of the right-of-way. They include those things in your letter. The more consistent the message is, the more often they hear it, the more likely it is to penetrate.
Yeah. So one of the key things that happens in this whole project, and it's downtown Dundee and that traffic situation, and so I just want to make sure we give you a chance. Mr. Mayor, that has become a bit of a challenge. What's happening, and is there anything the Parkway Committee can do?
I'm not so sure Parkway can do much. I've started taking the issue kind of up chain with ODOT. But, as Mayor Newberg mentioned, that a lot of issue has to do with the HDA handicap, ramps and things like that. Because ODOT will be redoing the whole street surface, it triggers that every single corner in this town needs a ramp. And so even the project's been separated out because there's things that Dundee's doing with sewer and new water lines and things like that that can't be used with federal funds. So it's been separated in different phases where the city's doing some and ODOT's doing some. But even the city's portion, where the city would not normally be required, still has to have all this stuff required because of the combination of the entire project. We've had this money online for 10 years or something, which has basically diminished its effectiveness. And ODOT actually has agreed that they're going to give us more to make sure the project gets complete. So anyway, at this point, I've heard from Tony, the project manager of this project, that we expect that we can get this funding cleared so we can go to bid somewhere by the end of the month. So we'll see about that. That's when the other guy, let's get these names. What? Tim Potter. Yeah, Tim Potter's on vacation right now. He's supposed to be back by the end of the month, and he's the one who signs the authorization for that clearance. So I've been told when he comes back, if he doesn't sign it, then I can see about getting help for Tony. But really, I guess there's a blessing in that if we were really trying to get bids right now with all the contractors working their butts off, they'd be high. So looking at starting more in the fall, they're saying it could be cheaper, could make things work a little better. Of course, it could get us into winter, some of the issues that we had when we had 10th Street and a contractor from Sherwood not knowing how to work in the rain. Yeah. But so anyway, we still hope that this project, the downtown streetscape, will be complete by the end of 2017, along with the first phase of Black House.
Good. Questions? Well, we've done Newburgh, McMinnville.
Let me add to Newburgh. Mayor had to leave and didn't report on this, but as you may recall, we've reported in here that the City of Newburgh got a Transportation Growth Management grant from ODOT to do a downtown plan for what happens after the bypass opens and we can recapture our streets and turn it into pedestrian. And that is moving along quite well. It's an extensive project, many public meetings, a lot of consultant work. Give you an example is I just happened to have in my briefcase because I was meeting yesterday. This is the parking management study alone. It's this detail about what you can do with your parking downtown as you reconfigure your streets and all that sort of thing. So there will be equal consideration for street furniture and tree plants and how you widen, how you capture the real estate. Just wanted to let you all know that's progressing way behind what Dundee has done about figuring out what they're going to do with 99. But by the end of the year, Newburgh will have a very comprehensive and very detailed and excellent proposal strategy for what happens with the highway being First and Hancock when the bypass opens.
Questions on that? Huge. McMinnville, Mr. Mayor.
Just to let you know that we're progressing well on the work on last year our voters approved as I mentioned before, approved over $30 million bond levy for transportation improvements. We have 3 projects now that are currently in the works of several projects, and if you drive through parts of McMinnville, it kind of looks like a rainbow by the time you look at all the colors of the locates on the streets, the sidewalks, the flower beds. The first one, I think the most critical, is Tuesday night. Our city council received a final presentation on the design, the almost final design of our Hill Road project, which is the main north-south arterial on the west side of town, which is now it was built years and years ago to county road standards, and it's actually serving urban street standards. We received the presentation on that. That's going to be basically a wide two-lane parkway type with center turn lanes, and there will be 3 roundabouts. And there will also be, where there isn't left-hand turn lanes, there will be a center median. There will be a landscape median to give it the parkway look, and it will also calm the traffic because that is a very busy. Yet we realize that because that is the main north-south, that there's a lot of work that how those roundabouts are designed, because that is the main agricultural route for farmers getting their implements from the north side of McMinnville to the south and south side of McMinnville to the north. The most important thing I think about that particular project is that for years, is that has been maintained, of course, by Yamhill County as a rural road when it hasn't served that way. By the city of McMinnville building that out and taking jurisdiction of it, it will alleviate the need for the county to spend money on maintaining a road that really is being used as an urban street. Our second project that we're working on is our Northeast Gateway area, and that's taking the old blighted industrial area on Alpine Street from 7th to 12th, and actually some of it's paved, some of it's gravel. The paved part has potholes, very cracked, putting in new street surfaces, landscape street surfaces, changing the whole profile of that. That's being worked on, and we'll start construction probably again this fall. And then our third one is the new downtown east-west arterial that runs actually past the courthouse on 5th Street and goes from Lafayette Avenue to Adams Street. And that will actually surface and serve most of the traffic needs for east-west, and hopefully take a lot of it off 3rd Street. So those three projects, the Hill Road project, our City Water and Light Department is actually doing the engineering now. We'll start seeing utility work out there very shortly. That's really slated now to have the final design done in October, with the construction to start next April. Hopefully it'll be one construction season, but it's such a major project, they're probably talking 2 construction seasons. And so we'll have, between now and the end of next year, we'll have 3 to 4 major projects going on all at the same time in the city of McMinnville. It will create traffic interruptions. It will create some detours that probably aren't going to be helpful or be friendly, but they will.
Thank you.
They will be there. I know, Dave, since you just happen to be on 5th Street.
We're delighted.
Yes, I'm sure you are.
Haven't even went out to bid yet?
No, the first one, David, do you remember when our first one on Hill Road's going out to bid? Isn't it?
No, I think we're a little ways out for the Hill Road bid. I think 5th Street's much closer. We're in right-of-way acquisition
Right now, and I think it's gonna go out to bid, isn't it? I think 5th Street was October. We're hoping for October it will go out to bid. And then Hill Road, part of it probably could go out, I think, in probably February of next year.
So we better get ours out before you do.
Yeah, there you go. Yamhill County, Commissioner.
We have a ton of road projects going, probably Parrot Mountain, we're doing some road widening up there. We got Earlwood that is going from gravel to pavement, and that's gonna happen this spring. It's exciting. That's been an interesting project. It was supposed to be done last year, but we ran into a lot of concerns on the part of citizens up there, and so we did a lot of additional studies, and now we're moving forward with it. And we always build a STIP program with substantial projects as alternates. Because of the price of pavement this year, the asphalt, everything was able to be done. And so our people are really, really busy, and it's going to be an exciting summer. We're out every day. We've got ditches being cleaned out. We have a few problems. We had up on Chehalem Creek, we had a creek bank that dumped a few hundred truckloads of silt into the creek and flooded several driveways, and now it's a jurisdictional issue because you can't go in there and start digging. Part of it's a conservation easement, so you can't touch it, and the people above that, they can't get in their driveways, and they want the county to come do it, but we can't do it because it's not county property. So those are the kinds of issues that you run into, these different agencies, and we are working with Soil and Water and Department of Forestry and Farm to see how we can help these citizens up there. But it's it gets very frustrating working through agencies, and on the phone to James LeBar. He's our regional solutions coordinator for the mayor's, the governor's office. Trying to get him to get these jurisdictions together and talk to one another, because if you're pulling your driveway and there's 2 feet of water and you can't get out of your car, you need help. So anyway, we've got issues all over the county, but things are happening, and I'm gonna duck out now because I run back to.
You got a granddaughter you need to.
I made a commitment to a granddaughter that I'm going to be at her award ceremony at her elementary school today.
We'll be probably in the first floor conference room of City Hall downtown Newburgh.
I will be in Newburgh at 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Pick you up, sir, and we will head up to
Hood River.
Hood River.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I know there's been, or Rob, there's been a lot of conversation about an interchange and issues down, and if you, about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday afternoon in the middle of the day, I went to the coast and the traffic was backed up clear back to the connection of 22 and 18. What's happening?
Well, with regard to that interchange, I think it's still in the very early stages of what it's going to look like. Certainly we have a huge interest in what it would be. I think we were concerned at some of the early designs because they would actually take people past the casino and they would have to come back. I think everybody can recognize that would not be good for any business owner. So those designs are early. We don't have dates as to when that would begin. The tribe would certainly be a contributor to that. One of the things that we're doing, Chris and I were just talking, is we're doing a major remodel, at the casino this year. And Chris, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of relates to something that's occurring out of state that, everyone's familiar with the Cowlitz Casino, because most of our patrons come from the Portland area, so that's part of the reason why we've been so committed to the Dundee bypass, because being able to shave off drive time from some of our patrons would be really huge in keeping us competitive. So the remodel is part of that overall strategy for maintaining the Spirit Mountain Casino brand name. I think we're anticipating a decision on Cowlitz sometime at the end of the year. I haven't driven by the property. I've been told that it's looking pretty nice what they've got going on up there. It's very similar to ours, but it's still in court. We're optimistic, but hopefully by the end of the year we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen. And that's why the timing of this project is so key, because people are going to be looking at a similar property just less than an hour north of Portland, whereas prior to the bypass being built, people would have a much longer drive. So this project is just so important to Grand Ron, and that's why I can't believe it's been like 12 years, I think, since the first time I came to one of these meetings, and so to actually drive by it and see that it's come to fruition is just astonishing. So yeah, I haven't been to one of these meetings in several years, so this is my first time in this building, as a matter of fact. So just the amount of progress in this area is just great. So other than that, we don't really have much in the way of transportation projects going on down in Grand Ron.
Well, but what we can add too is that, Chris talked about the remodel that we're doing and how this project fits into what we're doing out in Grand Ron. One of the messages that we've been telling people, especially at the state level, as we talk about this project, where we're uniquely positioned to talk about, we are one of the largest employers in this area. So when we talk about impacts from competition,
Largest
from talents,
in Polk County, yeah.
Exactly. So what they would have, that means jobs for everybody, that people could potentially be laid off. So one of the messages that we want to send is, why we're doing the remodel, why you mentioned the interchange out in Grand Ron, how that design is appropriate to fit us so it doesn't make it more difficult for people to get into our property. And most importantly, for everybody here, Newburgh Dundee, if people can come out to Grand Ron and say, oh, I don't have to leave quite as early to go home because I've got that wonderful bypass now and I don't get stuck going through Dundee and Newburgh, that's great. People stay longer. That translates to our employees having jobs out there. And we're talking about potentially hundreds of jobs for these communities. It's about 1,400 now?
Between the governance center and the casino, it's about 1,500.
1,500?
Yeah, employees,
Yeah.
full-time.
So it means a lot, and that translates to a lot of income for local communities, as many of you are aware. So what we've tried to do when we talk about Newburgh Dundee in our conversations that we have, whether it's with the governor's office or back in Washington, D.C., is to combine some of these concepts to show how they're very much related in terms of what is going on.
And that's the very point that makes it so important that there's a successful conversation on the Worth property, is the job's there, but the mayor would tell you the huge impact on transportation and ability to have jobs in McMinnville. So everybody's got a piece of this, and how important it is that we, as a group, are successful and support the whole project and the part that Cheyenne Parks and the Austins and everybody else can play to make that happen. So, we're all in this one really together, so thank you. Mike, Cheyenne Parks.
I've mentioned in here before the mitigation that ODOT is doing on the property that the district owns down on the river where the 219 bridge crosses. We own property on both sides, a total of 90 acres down there. And to refresh your memory, ODOT's required to mitigate 2 acres for every acre of wetlands or impacts that they make, and so they've got a huge project down there. The district has allowed them to use the properties. I didn't really have my head around it until a recent report to the board. It'll be the largest restoration project in the history of the state, and it's just amazing how many thousands of plants they're planting in there, how much invasives they've removed, and it's a really impressive project, and it's far enough along to really see what's going to happen. But wait till the Oak Savannah is 20 years old. It's going to be incredible what happens down there. It'll be a major, significant tourist attraction in and of itself. And Dave, I'd be willing to arrange, if this committee wants to do a field trip, I'd be more than happy to arrange at any time to have the committee go down and see what the ODOT mitigation is doing, and almost a totally unrelated impact that it's having on the community, which is quite significant.
So when that gets far enough along to where it really, the plannings and the things can be an informative,
It's there now.
Is it there?
Yeah, we can do it anytime during the summer,
Okay.
if the committee wants to.
Questions of Mike? Anything else? Anything we're forgetting? Comments? Stan?
We haven't heard in several months that we've been attending any conversation about the western end bypass. In other words, from the fish hook out to Dayton, I think was the original plan, which would take a lot of pressure off the fish hook, or whatever it ends up being mitigated. So does anyone have an update on that?
You know, if there was a big enough transportation plan, I think what our conversation been, we'd like to do both, and to do that one, that will be a future conversation, and your point's well taken, and I know Mayor Olson has made the comment, if you build the piece from Dundee to Dayton, you don't have to fix the fish hook. That fixes it. So the 35 or 40 million that it costs to fix the fish hook eventually may be a component of the cost savings on the other. We haven't forgotten it. Right now, what I think Mike would say is you put together phase 2, and how much can it take with it? How much more can you add to it depending on the size of the package to do that? So let us not forget that that's really a critical point. And Ted, I know you weren't here at the first part, but the conversation was very loud and very clear that while we absolutely must move phase 2 forward, that's not a comment by anybody that the fixing the fish hook is not and will not continue to be a major issue. You just have to figure out what's the critical one first, but we won't forget the fish hook when that's the appropriate time. And who knows how that will tie into a package.
Commissioner, this kind of reminds me of a centipede. It walks along and somebody asks it, how do you walk? And then it couldn't walk anymore. So, if you have to think about it, you really have to be able to understand what the order is and everything, but this thing it is very important in order but you still have to coordinate the whole thing together in order to make it work. And you certainly aren't going to, that's what I'm saying about my community, it's the same thing about everybody that's here at this table, their problems are not gonna be better until the whole thing is done. So yes, buying the bypass, make sure that we have the land to build it on, but getting the whole thing built is the ultimate goal. And and I guess the issue gets to be getting to the phase where you build the whole thing. And we don't know what's coming down the road with the federal government, but at some point, there's major pressures and major discussions being made about what infrastructure would do for this country. And so we're just part of that whole discussion and grabbing what piece we can of it to get it done. But this whole thing needs to be done at the end, and that's where we're trying to go. And I understand everybody understands that, but I think that's why it's so important what you're saying, I guess.
Well put.
Dave, I have one comment, and I think it goes back to that exact point. It's very easy to say, because I've had several of our citizens ask me, it's very easy when you get tied up in a conversation when they say, well, gee, I see the bypass is almost done. It's going, we can see pavement, we can see bridges. It's very easy to say, yeah, it almost is. It's a lot more difficult to say that, no, that is only a portion of the bypass, that we're nowhere close to getting the bypass, because we have to ensure that when we send that message that Dave was talking about, that we send the message that, no, we're not close to having the bypass done. We're close to having a portion of I don't even like to refer to it as phases. I like to refer to it as a portion, because that's all it is, it's a portion. If people start thinking in that mixed message that the bypass is almost done or is getting done, we will have a lot of problems ever finishing like the West End. So we have to make sure again that we send that clear message when people asks an elected official, ask somebody, that we don't send the message that, oh gee, the bypass is almost done, we'll be driving on it in a year and a half. No, we'll be driving on a little portion of it in a year and a half. So.
Excellent meeting. Next month, we will see if we can get Michelle Jaguar here, also to ask ODOT to come and update us on a number of parts of the whole puzzle. And our next meeting will
Dave, could I request a show of hands of people that would like to tour that mitigation site? If there's enough, we'll put it together. Okay.
And so and that may even be a good opportunity maybe in August.
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Mr. Chairman, just kind of a
Please,
second.
jump in.
Before the mayor took off, he didn't want to miss the opportunity that, we're focused and we talked a lot about the portion in Newburgh, but it's not lost, and we're very appreciative that this is a whole team effort, of a lot of communities. So you had that conversation that said, you're spending money up there, what about us, kind of a thing. So we're talking about real specific parts with this, but we know there's a lot of people, both other partners in the government side, but also, the Austins and the tribe, and it is appreciated. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Tom.
I had a question, Dave.
Yes.
So when did we start filming these meetings? When did we start filming these meetings?
Dave Adams is with KLYC, and I think it's been about, 6 months ago, Dave?
It's been about 6 months. It's streamed live now. People are
Oh, it's live? Oh.
And then you can also watch
Be on your best behavior, Chris.
You should tell them because we heard you were coming.
It's also you can also watch it later. There's no charge. It's on our website. It's on YouTube, and we have unlimited capacity. So we use Newburgh City Council, Newburgh City Council this, and we're going to go to Yamhill County Commission after this meeting.
Cool.
Great. So, and we're delighted to have that. We're delighted to have the News Register. We always welcome the media, because the more people that listen to and are involved and understand what's happening and the critical components of these parts, the more support we really get. So thank you to all of you. The next meeting will be on July 21st. Unless there's some concern about that, we'll look forward to seeing all of you then, and we'll keep you updated as to what happens with respect to the Transportation Commission meeting today and what's going on in terms of the STEM.